Alright, so this is the latest project we got in here in the shop. This here is I don't know, I would say a piece made in the 50s, passed on through generations of family members, and one particular family member loves it, so they want it refinished. So as you can see back here, this is where I started doing some sanding because I didn't think it was going to be that difficult, because you see how the finish is spidered. It could be one of two things. It could be one of several things. One, the finish itself, when it was applied way back when, could have been old, or two, it could have been a nice thick lacquer that somebody put it into storage, and since this did come from up north in Michigan, you know, if you put a piece like this out in a barn through a very cold winter, your finish is likely to spider like that. And since the whole finish is spidered like that, I'm leaning towards either one, it was a bad finish to begin with, or two, this piece was just left out in the winter, the harsh Michigan winters. And so I'm going to pick this up. Sorry, it's going to shake a little bit here, but that's the tabletop, and the customer wants that tabletop to kind of blend in better with the base. That'll be a little difficult to color match, but not impossible. So I guess we'll get started stripping the tabletop, that is. So some items you're going to need to do this is obviously going to need a good stripper. This is not my preferred stripper. There's actually an all citrus base that I prefer to use, just because it's more environmental friendly, and you know it's still a stripper. Don't get me wrong; it's still gonna do what it's supposed to do, but it's not as nasty as this one or some other ones. You're also going to need some, I use nitrile gloves, and of course a cheap old chip brush to brush on the paste or the gel, and then a nice big putty knife to remove that. Usually I have a cardboard box. I'll cut a hole in it or a slice in the side of it. Can I help you? I'll cut a slice in the side of it so that I can wipe my knife clean. So, pretty simple operation, right? So I'm just going to pour some of this on. Like I said, this is gel. I probably should have shaken it up a little bit, but so I try to do smaller areas. I guess I should have poured some over towards this side, but I try to do smaller areas, just to, you know, just so I'm not trying to strip all the finish off the top of this whole thing at one time. And kind of run the risk of not getting the stripper off in time. Excuse me. Now, this stripper claims then in 15 minutes you'll be ready to go. Some finishes, maybe that's thicker than this, will take a little bit longer. You know, it's just pretty much let the stripper do its thing. And I think I'll call this a nice quit line here, and just kind of work this back and forth. The puddled stuff, just to kind of keep stuff a little wet. It's already been applied. Just like so. Now as you drag your brush through, you can kind of fill some areas that are getting a little gummy, and that's where you want to pull the kind of the excess pooled up stripper. Okay, so here's a cardboard box, and I just basically take this is a Kaizen knife. I really like these knives; they're pretty stout. So I'm just gonna take this knife, gonna slid inside of the box. So now when I scrape my stuff off, I take my knife, put it in that there, clean it off. Now you want to make sure that obviously the cut covers the entire width of the knife, right? Like that. Alright, through the magic of cameras, it's been about 15 minutes, and I've kind of realized one thing. Every time I start to film, it's like tons of cars go by, so hopefully that's not too annoying for everybody watching. Alright, so I've got this area we're going to strip. I'm actually going to start over here at this side because I don't want it to drip down the sides or the edges and get down onto the base. So I'm going to kind of pull it back this way. And you see how stringy and yummy that looks, right? And since that's coming off in a nice big glob like that, I'm just going to put it down here inside the box and try to clean my knife off as best as I can. Typically I use a smaller knife than this. I don't necessarily like this size of a knife for this, but in case you can't tell by looking back there, my shop is an utter cluster right now. We had at one time I had, let's see here, I still have a rocking chair in here that my kids got me years ago for Father's Day, and it's one of these old timber looking ones that let's just scrape that right off the edge there like that. I'm a bigger guy, and it kind of fits me pretty well. And they spent whatever it was, 60, 80, 100 bucks on it back 10, 12 years ago, and I've always liked it. But back then I wasn't as skilled of a cabinet maker or furniture maker, whatever the hell we are. Right now we're refinishers, so I guess it's just what the times are. Anyhow, the skills that I had back then were nowhere near like the skills I possess today. It's just through trial and error and learning and taking a bunch of classes and just understanding constructions. And I used a Titebond 1 glue to glue this stuff together, which, don't get me wrong, it held up okay for a little bit, but then it started to kind of disintegrate over time. Alright, so cleaned all the schmutz off, and the table's a little bit wet in some spots, but I'm not gonna go too crazy over that. Like I said, I'm going to use 220 grit just because I don't know if this is indeed veneer. So I'm going to go, high grit. I'll probably smoke through more sandpaper doing this, but at least I wouldn't be running that high of a risk running through the veneer with a lower grit sandpaper. So baby looks sweet. I'm guessing, like this grain pattern, it kind of strikes me as a walnut grain pattern, but doesn't quite have the color maybe that I'm used to in walnut. I don't know, maybe it's butternut, I'm not sure, but wow, is this a gorgeous piece. And I think this is a solid wood now that I'm looking at it without any finish kind of clogging my mind. It actually looks like these two pieces here were book matched, right? And this here was a filler piece, and then you had this nice funky grain pattern over there. So this took me roughly about 2 hours to get to this point. I sanded this up to 320. So I did the 220, take off all the nasty gnarly stuff, and then I did 220 again. And then I did a 320. I think it's a 320. I don't want to tell you bad numbers here. And of course I can't read it now. I think it's 320, maybe 340, who cares. So now I'm good with this stage here, and the only thing I got to do is these side aprons, but hey, no biggie there. So I just wanted to kind of share this with everybody because, you know, if you're ever in a resale shop or a restore or something like that, and you see this clunky old piece of mess off to the side, maybe you don't like the ornamental bottom, but you love this top. Well, this top unscrews from the bottom. So if you wanted to take this and say turn this into a smaller kitchen table, where, you know, maybe 4 chairs, cut it down a little bit, 4 people, you know, you can take that, clean it all up to get it to this stage here. You can stain it however you want. You can finish it however you want. Now it's endless. The only thing I would recommend, like on this one here where the finish was all broken up, even though I gave it a good sanding, once I put the stain on, I'll probably put a coat of shellac on, because I don't know if there was like pledge used on this, or some kind of a wax that obviously that I can't see, but there may be some of it laying in there, because when I go to put lacquer on top of it, if there's any of those like waxes or things like that, I'm going to get fisheye, and fisheye is basically where you get a bubble in the finish and there's nothing you can do about it. So I'll definitely do a coat of shellac once I get it to here, because just because I don't know, and even though I sanded it real well, I don't want to take any chances. So, you know, just a nice little project. Wanted everybody to kind of see the process of taking something from 1950 something and stripping it down and seeing what's underneath of it. So any questions, down in the comments section, I'll answer them as quickly as I can, or as best as I can. And you know what, I'll see you guys the next time I got a project in the shop. Until then, go refinish something.